Hey everybody, Big Toad here. We're going to do a color mixing exercise and we're going to focus on green. And we're going to start with ultramarine blue and we're going to use yellow ochre. Now, the reason I want to start with green is because greens can be tough. They're one of the most important outdoor colors there are, and yet they seem to be difficult. There's so many ways to use greens, so many places use greens used, but we tend to make our greens so vibrant and brilliant that there's no room to go with them, and so we end up making paintings that are just unreal because the greens are over the top or they're not lined up. So let me start with this. When I want to do a scenery, when I want to do a landscape and I want to have greens, I always start with ultramarine blue and the yellow ochre. I always start there. So let's go ahead and mix. So we're going to go like a 50-50. Okay, 50% of that, and I'm going to even wipe my spatula off so we get about 50-50, and really going to try to be accurate. And I would never be this accurate in when I'm mixing my colors. That's not part of the exercise, but I want to give you an idea. Let's mix this together. All right, now look at that green. Right off the bat, we develop a green that is a really natural looking green. It's not too vibrant. That is where I like to start with my greens right there. That is just, I think it's a beautiful green. It's perfect. And it's just two colors mixed 50-50. And we get this nice green color. And that's usable in just about every place where you want to make a tree. Somewhere in there, if it's a summertime tree or an evergreen, you're going to have that kind of green. So now, next part of the exercise, I want to lighten that up. And of course, the best way to lighten anything, really, the only way you can really do it without altering the color, is titanium white. So let's get some titanium white on this palette. All right, so we're going to start with that. Now I'm going to probably bring in some other colors here in a little bit, but so there's our. Now we can take a little bit and just bring in. It doesn't take much, and we can start making various strengths of that. And we can bring that in and make it a little stronger. And so there we have three really nice greens right there. Really, there's three great greens you can use to start. And so I could do a fourth one by mixing these in between. Get a little, and go the other way, this way as well. But you can see this a value scale is what we're getting to here. A value scale of going from the darker green that I make with that and going to the lighter green. All right, so what I would normally do when I'm doing my trees is I would get a collection of the dark, and I've got white mixed in there, here, let's just bring in some more of this. We're going to need some more anyway. So I'm going to darken that back up to kind of my starting point. I'm going to have that green laid out there, and then I'm going to have my medium green laid out there. That's going to be in the middle. And then I'm going to have my lighter green. Let's bring in a little more of that white to see the difference there. Alright, so there's three great greens I can use. Let's just do this. Right there, burnt sienna. Let's take some of that green we've got there and mix that in with burnt sienna, and what do we get? Look at that we get to a nice, dark, deep brown that we can use for barks in our tree. All right, then we can lighten that up. Bring in some that. Bring in this white. See, now we get these various shades of the brown that we can mix. And I kind of blend them all together, as you can see, but I could go really white here and get a nice dull. And I've got my middle color. I can bring back middle color of my brown and go there. All right, so that's bringing in the burnt sienna to get those nice browns. Great for tree barks, great for dirt, and anywhere you need a brown. That maybe I'll bring in some alizarin crimson. Let's do the same thing. Some alizarin crimson. Let's get some of our dark green. Let's start putting that in. I might have to bring in some more. Bring in an equal amount of that. Now look at this color. This is a nice, very rich, deep, dark mauve-y that can also be a brown, you see, and we can create that. And all what I did there is I took my green that I had here, started with these evenly mixed to get this nice dark green, and I added in alizarin crimson to get this color. And if I lighten it up, let's bring in some lighter. It's really until you start lightening it, you're not sometimes sure what exactly the color is going to do. But and then bring out just some nice white. Get it really light. So again, look at these colors we have. These are very nature colors. And nature colors is what you get when you have your ultramarine blue, your burnt sienna, which I use to make these browns, and my yellow ochre. All right, so that's just bringing in the alizarin crimson there. Now what often happens is, one of the yellowest yellows is the cad yellow light. Now let's make some green out of that, and I'll show you what the problem is. When you were in grade school, if you were going to mix colors, you had a brilliant blue and a brilliant yellow, and you made your color, and it's beautiful. What do you end up with? So let's get a big chunk of that, big chunk of that. We're going about 50-50, and this is what I'm talking about. Now this green, that is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant green. If you start with that, you have nowhere to go. If you are going to use this green in your painting, you cannot start with it. Now let me explain what I'm talking about. Keep in mind that the time when cad yellow light is the most brilliant is right out of the tube. I can change its hue by adding white, but I can't make it more brilliant. I can't make it brighter. That's the brightest it can get. The brightest that ultramarine blue can be is right out of the tube. I can't make it brighter. I can't make it more brilliant or more powerful than it is. All I can do is change the hue, bring the value down, mix it with something else. So this is the brightest green I can do. If you start with that green, you have nowhere to go. You're going to spend the rest of your time fighting that green because you're going to be trying to fit it into the more natural colors. But if I take that and I start mixing in some white, I can get some colors that maybe are more usable. Let's do a half now. All right, so immediately I've created some greens and some green hues that have more value to me, and I mean talking value now as in like a monetary value or more usefulness, because they're not nearly as powerful. Don't start with that green ever. Now you can start with this green because it's deeper, darker. This could be your darkest dark in your trees. But what if you want darker? What if you want darker than your darkest dark? And what if that's not dark enough? Because I often use a darker green than this. I can't get it with cad yellow light. I get this brilliant green. And if I'm going to use that kind of green right there, it's going to be the finishing touches to create highlights possibly where the sun's hitting my tree, my leaves. If you look at a tree, you can find this color in the tree, but it's not everywhere. You're going to find this color or this color or this color more often, and then that'll be a special color in some places. You put too much of that on there, you end up with a cartoon, childish looking painting. So you go here. Now, I can also take this and mix some of this green in it. Now, look what I've got. Take my... Now I've got a completely nicer, different green. Now I have a green that's kind of leaning towards the browns, which is not quite autumn, but leaning towards the browns. And you can find this color in the trees. Now, let's take that with some white. Let's bring that down in our value. And there we got some nice green. And so this is what I do. When I know I'm going to use this green, I know I'll use this green, and I know I'll use that green. I never just use that green. I'm going to use this and this. Even if it's a little bit, I'm going to put that in my painting. If I'm going to use this green, again, what did I do? I took this brilliant green that I had here and added in yellow ochre to get this nice green, which is a green I can see in nature more often. It's not going to be as brilliant and as bright as that. So it has value, more value to me, more usefulness in my trees, because I can't start with that. But this is a great one to put over this one. So now I can use this palette, I can use this palette, and by making these three colors, in making them, now I have them available to start working on my painting. And I go ahead and I mix these through. I always mix three colors when I'm most always doing anything, because it's very seldom I want this color without that color and maybe some of that color. It's very seldom I'm going to go from this color and not use these two, because we're creating that. By using these, we create movement. Again, I took this color, is this and this, which was this dark color, and I mixed in some cad yellow light to get this color, and went from here to here. Here, I want to bring in some more burnt sienna. I always have burnt sienna, yellow ochre, ultramarine blue on every palette. But let's look at this now. The best black you can get without getting black is, of course, you've heard it before, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna gets you a very, very dark, deep, rich. You can use that as black. So that can be your darkest darks in a lot of your paintings right there. And if you put ivory black next to it, but I may put it right here in this corner. Look at that, that's a lot of ivory black. But look at how close those are. I should have just stuck with that, not wasted my ivory black. But if you've been watching me very long, you know I use a lot of paint. So look at the difference in these colors. It's hard to tell. But let's take some white now. And let's mix in some of this, because you really get an idea then for what this color is you just mixed up here. This darkest dark really ends up being, look at that, when we lighten it down, it ends up being a kind of a brown, doesn't it? And it's not really black, but they're so deep in pigment, so full of pigment and dark, deep, rich colors, so much pigment, we create what looks like a black. So, I will use this often when I'm trying to get black, but you got to remember, it's more of a dark, deep brown. Remember this brown? What did I make it out of? I threw my ultramarine blue, my yellow ochre, and a little bit of the burnt sienna, and I got this brown. And this one here, I went with alizarin crimson here, and got this. Why do these are kind of in the same area? Because burnt sienna is a type of red. Alizarin crimson is a type of red. And that's why this one is leaning almost, you look in there, you see some purple and some mauve. And that's why this over here gets me a brown as well, only a deeper darker, because I went 50-50 with these with no yellow ochre in it. Because if I took this same thing and added yellow ochre to it, I'm going to end up with more of a brown. And I got a lot of yellow ochre here. I can bring some more of this over. And you'll see I'm actually slowly working it towards this color here. But I keep bringing over this. And why? Because that's really a little heavier. If I can go get that and a little bit of this. That's all that is now I'm going to get closer to that brown I have over here. Now this has got a little more blue in it, so it's making it a little darker, but it's the same colors. I just went a little darker on the blue. And you see I'm not using any fancy paint here. These are just the, and I know I will get bashed by some people, but I'm just using their student colors. Why? Well, that's what a lot of beginning artists use, student colors. So, and they can make nice paintings. Typically you're going to find that your professional grade is going to be better. I agree. I 100% wholly agree with that. But you can make this work really well. So now, ultramarine blue, and I got this brown. It's not the same as that brown. Why? Because I have more blue than I have this, than I have burnt sienna. Now I can take also, so here's that green, and let's make some more of that. About 50-50. Let's make some more 50-50. And one of the things people get afraid about, oh, I'm starting on my trees, what if I don't get the same color? It doesn't matter. Get close. Because there's so many variations in green that it doesn't matter. So there's that color. Now, if I go and I add more blue to that, on this side, what do I get? I get a bluish greenish color, and it's got a lot more. It's got a lot more blue to it. And now if I start bringing some white in on that, I can get kind of get more in the turquoise range. See, I can get more in that turquoise range by taking more blue into that. You know, and that's a beautiful turquoise that you would use in ocean scenes and such, right there. And I can spark it up a little bit, some yellow. See, I'm getting that blue. Now I'm getting a little bit of green in there. Okay, a little bit more green in there, but that's the blue, and so more blue back in there. Okay, we're kind of on the edge of that. Turquoise is kind of on the edge of bluish green, a little more blue than green. And now let's come back over and get some white and just start lightening this up. And we start getting into some nice light turquoise colors. Now for a really good turquoise, you got this green over here too. You can start bringing in and get more towards that turquoise by bringing in that green over there. So now that one's got a little softer, deeper greenish color. You know how you get good at mixing colors? You mix them all the time. That's how you get good at it. You'll find that a lot of painters, especially in oil, have a limited palette. Look what I've done here with ultramarine blue, cad yellow, light yellow ochre, burnt sienna, titanium white. I've got some nice, rich, beautiful colors here that have gone all over the natural spectrum, from these turquoisey colors, these greens, to these greens, and see how I've bounced around. Now I can take this yellow ochre and put some of this green to it and go the other direction with it, go more towards the yellow instead of the see, now we kind of got that pukey green. I can say that, right? Pukey green. You know, it's kind of that brownish green. I can bring in a little bit of cad yellow light into that and add some nice richer yellow to it. And look at that. That's another nice green. It's different than every other green we have out here. And what did I do? I took a little bit of the cad yellow and put it in where I was heavy on the ochre, a little bit of the cad yellow light, and mixed it in with my dark green I got from those two, and I get this nice, really kind of green here. You see how many different greens I got with just a small, limited palette. And I could paint an entire painting with these colors and never have to bring any other color out. I've done a lot of paintings where this is all the colors I ever needed. Now I did bring in some alizarin crimson here, I guess. But as you can see, I only do that if I need red, but I can get to a pretty good brown here, and I could darken that up by bringing in some of this also to my brown here. And see, now I create a darker brown by bringing in my deep dark ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and mixing that right in with the dark brown I've got. And look at that nice deep rich brown that I've got there just by adding a little bit of that. And now let's add a little bit of this ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Just add a tad of that to this, and I can really deepen that out as well. Let me get to it. I'm running out of room. And the only thing I don't like about this sienna palette here, it's a sienna plein air palette that goes on, is that when I get close to the edges, I kind of run out of room. I use lots of space on my palette. So there's, again, some nice deep dark browns, but it's not that much different than that one. So I did not even need my alizarin crimson, really. I mean, I get these colors. These are nice colors. But if you took this out with these 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, you've got the ability to create a really natural landscape. And this isn't all the yellows I can do either. I mean, excuse me, all the greens and browns I can get out of these 4 colors with titanium white. Again, never even touched my ivory black. Now, what do I do with my ivory black? Well, I have a couple things I do with it. One is, if I want to make a shortcut to grays, there is nothing quicker than ivory black and your titanium white to get you the grays. And so now I've got my grays, and now I can lean that gray, and I can make it darker by bringing over some lighter by bringing over that. Now I can darken this gray. So let's say I'm doing gray clouds in the sky. I often will just start, that's what I will use ivory black for, to go to the gray. And then I can take it, and if I want to add some color to the gray, maybe I'll take some of my gray and, you know, and pull it in here and make a you know, a grayish, greenish color or something like that. You can get gray, now you can get gray without ivory black, but that's a shortcut. I call ivory black a beautiful shortcut color because I can get to my grays really, really fast. If you mix all your colors together, you can get to a gray. It's not as fast or as efficient. Like this, you thought that was black until I started mixing white into it, and then we got to these browns, right? Because that looked black as black until you compared it directly to the ivory black. Then you realize, oh, it's just a really deep, dark, rich brown. But in most cases, that can be used for your black until you start shading it. If I tried to make a gray with that, it's not going to work. I get this brown color. So that's why it's a shortcut color. I use the ivory black. If you're going to use color straight out of the tube, my rule is save it to the very last step, because that's going to be the most brilliant color that you can put out there. If I'm going to use straight yellow, I don't want to use it everywhere, and I want to use it during my last steps of my painting as a final highlight to make something pop, like my flower to pop. I don't want to have a whole leaf of that, because then that becomes overpowering and you don't get the pop that you'll get if I have a muted yellow and then put where the light's hitting it just right, put the most brilliant yellow I've got. I also on my palette will have cad yellow medium, because I just love that color when fresh out of the tube. And so a lot of times I'll save that to the end and I'll use those on little flowers. It's another great yellow. And it'll change these greens as well. But if you always start with that ultramarine blue and yellow ochre, then you bring in little bits of this in here and there, that's where you can work from. So always work from the same base to move out. Again, I worked here, cad yellow light to come this way. I worked here to come into these greens, and now I got these bluish greens by playing around with the amount of blue in my colors as opposed to the amount of red, bringing in some cad yellow, and play with it. If I'm going to do a forest, I will start with ultramarine blue, and I will start with my yellow ochre and make a green, and then I will make several hues like I did here. Then I will bring in some of the yellow and make 3 more hues here. I will bring in some of the reds and make some greens here. I will go ahead and make some browns with my burnt sienna, and I will vary the amounts of these colors, and I'll make me an array, a palette like this of all the greens that I might use and browns. And with this, I can paint a nice tree with these colors. And I can even use this. Even these more watery type, you can still use those for highlights, especially if you're using an impasto type and you're using broken color. These will still work lovely in broken color. Get yourself a small board, put ultramarine blue here, yellow ochre here, and start mixing the colors down and making your ranges. Then you can come down here and introduce your cad yellow light and here and mix it down. You can introduce some burnt sienna here and mix it down and get your colors, and then you have a list, and you can just write up here in pencil what different colors you used and how much, because. And you could also go, instead of just 50-50, you can go 25-75. 25 of ultramarine blue, 75 of yellow ochre, and mix that down. You can go the other way, mix that down. And then you can, and then when you start adding these other colors, you can write that down, what your mixtures are, and you can get this beautiful array of greens. And then you can have a list right on here of all your greens. I hope this helped you, opened your eyes maybe to what you can do with your colors and how you should experiment and set your, go through and create all the different colors all in one time. So when you start painting your forest, you're going to need these colors. Make yourself a color board. For one thing, it'll help you waste less paint because you'll go right to the color you're after, and you'll look and say, what do I want to make these trees out of, or this grass out of, or these bushes out of, and you'll know which palette of color you're going to mix up. All right, well, I hope you found something useful in all that mess. But you got to just play like this. Get out there and play with your palettes. Now I'm going to fold this up, and I'm going to wait until I'm actually working on a forest over here. So I'm going to use all these colors anyway in this painting I'm working on. So no loss to me at all. I'm going to use them. So anyway, this is the Big Toad. Hope you learned something. Hope you found this useful, and I am out.